Welcome everyone to Triple S Reviews. In this video we're going to take a look at the 2005 movie Doom. Fair warning, this video will contain spoilers. Now, let's begin. Point number 1.
In the year 2026.
Strap in guys, next year is going to be crazier than we first thought. Point number 2. With this opening narration, we immediately learn this movie is not adapting the first Doom game that came out in 1993. In that game, there is no mention of Mars having an ancient civilization. The teleportation shenanigans were entirely human engineered, and they happened on Mars's moons Phobos and Deimos, with Phobos being the location the game is set, not Mars. The first game taking place on Mars is a common misconception. As per the Doom manual, we learn that Doom Guy was initially sent to Mars after assaulting his superior officer. But then, when Mars received a distressing message from Phobos, Doom Guy and his marine buddies were sent to the moon to find out what had happened, leading then to the events we play through in the first Doom game. So this movie is not adapting Doom 1993, it's also not adapting Doom 2 Hell on Earth, nor Final Doom, nor even Doom 64. It is in fact adapting Doom 3, which first released in 2004 and was a reboot, ignoring the events of all the games that came before it, as it was Doom 3 that was set on Mars and first introduced the idea of there being an ancient Martian civilization. It makes sense when you think about it that this movie, which again came out in 2005, would adapt the most recent Doom game that came out the previous year. Actually, for Mac and Xbox players of Doom 3, the movie came out the very same year the game did, with the game releasing on Mac and Xbox towards the start of 2005 and the movie towards the end of the year. Point number 3. I think this is a good time to mention that I'll also be talking about the novelisation of this movie. Yes, this movie got a novelisation, which includes a number of additions and alterations, and I'll point out the major additions and differences when they would have come up if they'd been in the movie. Point number 4. For some reason, amongst these shots of people running, we get this random blurred, low frame rate slow-mo shot, which I initially thought was a shot of zombies chasing after the living. It's actually not, but you might be asking, why did I think that? Well, in the movie Resident Evil Apocalypse, towards the start of the movie, there's a scene of a woman running up a stairwell being chased by a horde of zombies. And when they would show the zombies, the shot would be blurred, low frame rate and slow-mo, just like the shot in this movie. By the way, this won't be the only time I bring up Resident Evil in this video. Point number 5. Dr. Todd Carmack is named after id Software co-founder John Carmack, who was also a programmer on most of the Doom games all the way up to Doom 3. Point number 6. How this woman, Carmack's assistant Dr. Tallman, gets her arm cut off happens slightly differently in the novelisation. She actually reaches Carmack at the door just as it's about to open. The door gets stuck, but it's just wide enough for Carmack to slip through sideways, and when he's through he immediately presses for it to close. Tallman has enough time to slide her arm through before the door slams shut. Also, it's revealed Tallman isn't the only scientist Carmack has locked out, as another scientist shouts, "For God's sake, Carmack!" I love as well how this chapter, the first chapter of the novelisation, ends. As Carmack watches the door get smashed inward, he thinks to himself, so, this is it. This is what Doom feels like. I just love how the writer had to name drop the name of the franchise in the very first chapter. Point number 7. It's at this moment in the novelisation that we're told about the previous mission Sarge's team went on 6 weeks ago. The roster being Sarge, Reaper, Mac, Destroyer, Duke, Goat, Portman, the newest member of the team, and a guy named Jumper. Sarge had trusted Reaper to take the rest of the team out to patrol some methane fields for anti-UAC guerrillas while he hung out back at base. Reaper had also agreed to use weapons that hadn't been properly tested, and as such, the humidity was causing them to malfunction. The malfunctioning weapons and Reaper being fooled by a decoy resulted in the death of Jumper, and Reaper having to undergo memory therapy for having killed a 15-year-old boy who was the decoy and losing the closest thing he had to a friend. This also explains why Portman is just called Portman. He hasn't yet earned his combat name, and why there was a spot open on the team that the kid fills, with the kid not being a combat name but just a funny nickname. Point number 8. This movie does share a bunch of obvious similarities to the movie Predator, but I wonder if Goat catching something whilst reading and Portman and the kid talking about the female anatomy are also meant to be nods to Predator, with Rick catching something whilst reading and making jokes about the female anatomy. Point number 9. I find it an odd choice to have Duke be the one so worked up over leave being cancelled when it was Portman who was just complaining about the transports being 5 minutes late. So you would have thought Portman would be the one the most annoyed. you know? Point number 10. In the novelisation, Portman's weapon, rather than just being a handheld machine gun like in the movie, is instead said to be a plasma rifle. Same with Sarge, who in the novelisation grabs both a sniper rifle and a big 65mm pistol. Oh, no, wait, I must have messed that up when writing my scripts. I think I meant to type 6.5mm. Let me just recheck my Kindle here. And nope, the novelisation does in fact say a big 65mm pistol. Considering the measurement in the naming of a bullet signifies its diameter and not its length, then this pistol Sarge grabs uses bullets that are 2.5 inches in diameter. I watched Kentucky Ballistics, alright. I've seen him show just how big a 4-bore round is, and that's only 1 inch in diameter. So I can only assume the writer meant to say 6.5mm, or they got confused and thought the number meant the length of the round. Point number 11. I really like this scene of everyone grabbing their guns because it helps cement in the audience's mind who's called what by having the guns say out loud their handle IDs. As someone who has trouble remembering names, I appreciated this quite a lot. Also, one of the team members using a minigun is another similarity to the Predator, along with the obvious of the team taking a chopper. Point number 12. Speaking of the chopper, the shot of it taking off looks like it came right out of Team America World Police. And I mention that movie specifically because it released a year before this movie did, so it was fresh in my mind, and probably other people's minds as well. Point number 13. I love when waiting for the lift, instead of standing like normal human beings, the team arrange themselves into a hero pose lineup. Like they know they're being watched and are trying to make themselves look really cool. Point number 14. Speaking of the lift, the design of it really reminds me of the Roman numeral 2 from Doom 2 Hell on Earth, especially when it splits open. Point number 15. It's revealed in the novelisation that the only members of the team to throw up are the Kid and Portman, which I think is a nice detail because it shows despite how Portman treats him, Portman really isn't all that superior to the Kid. As I said before, Portman was the newest member of the team before the Kid came along, and it's even said in the novelisation that Portman felt like most of the team, but especially Sarge, had never accepted him because Portman only got onto the team due to his Marines op uncle pulling some strings. Contrast that with how the Kid decided he wanted to join the team. He was a guard on a ship that the RTS had been assigned to as extra protection against religious fanatic rebels. And when the ship was attacked, instead of trying to get to safety and leave the RTS to do all the fighting, the Kid, with his assault rifle, instead fought alongside the team to take out the rebels. He didn't actually get any kills, but his bravery did earn him the respect of at least Destroyer, who had noticed the Kid had joined them in fighting the rebels, whilst the rest of the ship guards had just run off. And after that, the Kid was determined to join the team, even with Destroyer telling him the training alone would kill him. Point number 16. They really just decided to beat us over the head that this guy was going to become a pinky demon, didn't they? Never mind the fact that he has a lower mechanical half, granted it's wheels, not legs, but still. They also gave him the very unique surname of Pinzerowski, so unique that if you put it into Google, every result you get is related to this character from this movie. And if you put it into Wikipedia, you only get 2 results. The page of the actor who plays Pinky, Dexter Fletcher, and the page for this movie. No other page on Wikipedia includes the word Pinzerowski. They should have just had him say his name is Pinky McPinky Demon and his persona is a mole rat. Point number 17.
He went to one galaxy, his ass went to another.
Is Reaper being serious here or hyperbolic? Could the Ark actually connect to places other than just Earth and Mars? In Doom 3, in the Room of Stars, there is a stone tablet map which appears to show the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars, with lines going out from Mars to and through the other planets, suggesting that ancient Martian teleporters could go beyond just Earth and Mars. And from what I gather, unlike in Doom 3, the teleporter we see here, the Ark, is ancient Martian technology. So while we see in Doom 3 the human-made teleporters were confined to only Mars, if we ignore Hell, the much more advanced ancient Martian teleporters we see in this movie bridge the distance between Earth and Mars, and possibly other planets as well, and that's where Pinky's legs went to, another planet the UAC had discovered the teleporter could lead to and had set up a base on. Point number 18. They really missed a chance for foreshadowing here by not having Sarge aiming at the Kid, and also to highlight the absolute insanity that is these guys just ignoring firearm safety by pointing their guns at each other. The writer of the novelisation has it so that the Kid doesn't join in and is actually surprised to see them do this. Because yeah, even if these guys are trained in firearms and the safeties are on, they still shouldn't be pointing their guns at other people unless they are planning on shooting them. Point number 19. I wonder if the writer of the novelisation, John Shirley, wasn't that big a fan of how creepy Portman was in the movie, since instead of walking up to these 4 women and saying this,
"We're under a level 5 quarantine, so I am just gonna have to strip search you girls."
Mr. Shirley changes it to the less creepy, "We're up here on vacation, we were wondering what you ladies were doing later." And also, on that note, I think Mr. Shirley has a major thing for Samantha Grimm actress Rosamund Pike. I think that because unlike in the movie where Portman abandons being creepy to the 4 women because they audibly reject him, in the novelisation, he abandons them because to Portman, Samantha is the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And that's not me saying I myself don't find Rosamund Pike attractive. She is attractive, but Mr. Shirley makes her out to be like Aphrodite reincarnated, even having the no-nonsense Sarge react to her beauty, giving her body a quick once-over. Point number 20. The audacity of Sarge telling Reaper he signed up for this when Sarge didn't tell Reaper or the rest of the team everything about the mission, and that they were also there to retrieve UAC property as well as to deal with whatever it is that's killing people. Reaper must be feeling like Burt Gummer in Tremors 2.
I feel I was denied critical, need-to-know information.
Point number 21. Here, Sam tells Sarge that only Carmack's team of 6 people were in the labs when it shut down. But Mr. Shirley has changed this for the novelisation so that the 6 scientists the team have been sent in to find are just the big shots. There were in fact other people in the facility as well, one being a Dr. Norris, another being Carmack's assistant Dexter, and there's a mention of lab technicians, so who knows how many people were actually in the labs when it all locked down. When Sarge asks Sam the question of how many people were in the labs when it locked down in the novelisation, Sam says just Carmack's team, but doesn't give a specific number. The only time we hear about the objective being to find 6 scientists is when Sarge mentions it in chapter 11, just over halfway through the book, and that's when we also find out they were just looking for the 6 big shots. Maybe novelisation Sarge thought the whole time there were only 6 people in the locked down labs, and upon finding out there were actually more, also felt like Burt Gummer from Tremors 2.
I feel I was denied critical, need-to-know information.
Point number 22. I wonder if the whole hearing people screaming over a phone left off the hook is a reference to the transmission of screams and demonic noises Dr. Weir plays for the crew of the Lewis and Clark in the movie Event Horizon. A movie Warhammer fans like to theorise could fit into the 40k universe, but I also think it could also quite easily fit into the Doom universe, what with all of its hellish imagery. Point number 23. It's pretty neat they have the camera move here as if it's a monster sneakily watching the team and hiding from them when they turn in its direction. Point number 24. Sarge must know there's no way he has clearance to get the Bioforce gun version Pi, and yet he tries anyway. The novelisation gives a reason that Sarge as well as Duke are such gun-loving Marines that this room of advanced weaponry is making them both pitch massive tents. And Sarge not being able to get his hands on the BFG leaves him frustrated with a bad case of blue balls. Point number 25. In this movie, Destroyer spotting a bloody lab coat and the kid shooting at a hose are 2 different scenes. In the novelisation, however, they've been reversed and combined into one scene. The kid shoots a hose, Destroyer tells him off, kid walks off, but Destroyer notices below the hose the kid shot at on the floor is a bloody lab coat, making Destroyer wonder if the kid has shot more than just a dangling hose. Also, Mr. Shirley has changed what Destroyer says when reporting to Sarge over the radio. Instead of saying friendly fire, in the novelisation he instead says misdirected fire, which makes more sense since the definition of friendly fire is weapon fire coming from one's own side that causes accidental injury or death to one's own forces, which as we see in the film didn't happen at all. Point number 26. Mr. Shirley really makes a point of portraying Sarge as an arsehole in the novelisation by adding in an extra conversation between him and Duke. Essentially, Duke asks Sarge if he knows what's doing the killing but just hasn't told the team, and that if Sarge does know, could he just tell him what it is because then he'd be better equipped to fight it. Sarge answers that by saying, bullshit, that's not why you want to know. You want to know because something about this place makes you feel like you might shit yourself. Basically, Sarge just accuses Duke of being a coward, and when Duke argues he just wants a handle on the situation, Sarge says maybe it's aliens, something related to aliens, or maybe not. Maybe it's people, some kind of brain fever virus. Maybe we'll get it and I'll be killing your ass dead because it's fucking me up. Maybe that'll happen happen in about 10 minutes, or maybe I won't wait that long because I'm fucking sick of your mouth. Sarge then asks Duke if he's clear now. Duke says no, but Sarge ignores that, saying, "Good, then you'll stay alert, won't you? Now shut the fuck up, Duke, before I knock your teeth down your throat." What a nice guy Sarge is, eh? Point number 27. This scene between Reaper and Sam is full of great one-liners.
I didn't figure it was the sort of thing I could jot down on a yearly birthday card. Does it ever bother you could have spent your life looking in a microscope instead of a sniper scope?
You don't shield a baby from time.
Okay, first off, a yearly birthday card. As opposed to what, Samantha? A weekly birthday card? Also, the "you don't shield a baby from timeline" is left out of the novelisation, though the mother skeleton is still described as being protectively wrapped around the baby skeleton, which really doesn't make any sense. If some of the Martian population turned into monsters and wiped out the rest, then the mother and child wouldn't have died in this position. They would have been torn to pieces, their bones shattered. Point number 28. Really obvious here, the rest of the pills in this bottle are glued together, because with how much Portman tilts the bottle, more than just two should have fallen out. Point number 29. The scene of the kid and Portman finding Dr. Tallman is completely different in the novelisation. Instead of finding a zombie Tallman, who has apparently written the word "suffer" in blood on the wall, and who attacks Kid and Portman with a knife, getting blown away as a result. In the novelisation, Kid and Portman smell barbecue, burst into an unsearched lab room, and find Tallman having died by chop suey by shoving a lab tool into a power outlet. Twitching from the electricity still, her skin burnt black, her hair burnt away, and her eyeballs melted, bubbling in their sockets. I find this an interesting change from the movie because I think it's meant to foreshadow Goat's second death. Just like how Goat realises he's turning into a zombie and bashes his own brains in on the window, novelisation Tallman presumably realised she was turning into a zombie and chose to take herself out by electrocution. Point number 30. I wonder how the kid would have reacted to seeing a naked Tallman in the novelisation, considering we're told he actually has a girlfriend called Millie. I like to think he wouldn't leer like he does in the movie. Point number 31. Would blood even be able to circulate whilst having these big black bits mixed in with it, especially in such a small monkey? In the novelisation though, this isn't a problem. Rather than the blood being red with black bits in it, it's instead described as just being jet black in colour. Point number 32. Just like Dr. Carmack being named after id Software co-founder John Carmack, Steve and Jenna having the surname Willits is also a reference to another former id Software employee, Tim Willits, who was the lead designer of Doom 3 and worked on Doom games all the way up to Doom VFR. Point number 33. I mean, I'm with Portman here. How is the possibility of it being an alien so unbelievable, Sam? Look at that thing. Point number 34. An interesting plot point Mr. Shirley introduces in the novelisation happens during the UAC personnel evacuation through the Ark back to Earth. One of the last people through the Ark is pale, sweating and stumbling, and no one notices the bloody wound on his neck. So this guy somehow at some point was attacked and infected, despite there being no zombies or monsters on this side of the airlock. My best guess is that this guy might have been attacked by an escaped lab animal that made its way to the other side of the airlock via the vents, so maybe it was another monkey or something like that. Now, the reason I think Mr. Shirley included this plot point of an infected person making it to Earth was to explain why the Earth Ark facility is so messed up by the time the team heads through. Sarge, Kid and Duke go through the portal
between 5 and 10 minutes
after Pinky and presumably a Hell Knight went through. That's not enough time for the Earth Ark facility to become this messed up with this many zombies running around and have the Hell Knight that followed Pinky be the culprit of it all. Instead, it had to have been started by the infected UAC guy who evacuated with the other personnel, which happened 3-ish hours ago when you take into consideration Portman's distress call. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in the novelisation, it is said Portman's distress call reaches Earth at the same time that Sarge, Kid and Duke go through the Ark. And since Portman sent it not that long after the UAC personnel evacuated, then that means the Earth Ark facility has been overrun with zombies and monsters for 3-ish hours. So, Earth Ark facility going to absolute hell in
between 5 and 10 minutes.
In my opinion, no. Earth Ark facility going to absolute hell in 3-ish hours. In my opinion, Yes. It is kinda hilarious though for Mr. Shirley to say there's been 3 hours between Portman sending the distress call and Sarge, Kid and Duke heading through the Ark back to Earth. Because in the movie's runtime, those events are 15 minutes apart and barely anything actually happens in those 15 minutes. Portman sends the message and gets killed straight after. The team brings his and Destroyer's body back to Sam and Duke. Sarge kills Imp Carmack, Duke and Kid go and make sure the dead scientists are actually dead, whilst Reaper, Sam and Sarge watch some movies and chat, then Pinky calls for help and goes through the Ark with the Hell Knight following him, and then it takes
between 5 and 10 minutes
for Sarge, Kid and Duke to go through after that. How in the hell did all of that take 3 hours? Did they take an hour getting Destroyer's body out of the cell, spend an hour watching movies, and then spend an hour talking? Actually thinking about it, getting Destroyer's body out of the cell I could see taking a while, but still not so that it and all the other things would add up to 3 hours. Point number 35. Okay, we jumped all over the place in that last point. Let's get back to where we were in the movie, which was Sam and Duke performing an autopsy on an imp, the name coined by Sam in the novelisation. In my opinion, Duke is just as much a creep as Portman when it comes to women. The way he talks about Sam and acts around her, especially here where it seems like he's trying to look down her top. In the theatrical version of this movie, this whole scene is missing, along with the scene of the Kid and Portman finding naked zombie Tallman, making the theatrical version a lot less creepy towards women, which in my opinion is a good thing, and is a thing Mr. Shirley must also believe is good, since he toned down the creepiness towards women in the novelisation a lot as well. Point number 36. I can't believe those making this movie completely missed that you can see the hand of the person that's making the lights flicker here. Point number 37. Funny how in the movie Duke seems cheerful when asking if Sam and Reaper are identical twins, whereas in the novelisation he hopes they aren't identical because it might be too much like having sex with Reaper. What a very normal thing to think about, novelisation Duke. Point number 38. God damn it, Sam is so useless. She's supposed to dog before Duke but doesn't say anything, and when she sees the imp all she does is scream, "No, watch out Duke," or anything. Point number 39. So we see the Carmack imp launches its infecting tongue at Duke and Sam, which raises the question, which of the two was Imp Mac aiming for? Is Duke evil or Sam? Or both? Well, in the novelisation, another imp launches its tongue at Sam, suggesting she is worthy of being infected, but during the novel's FPS scene, an imp also launches its tongue at Reaper when he already has C24 in his system. So maybe this is just an imp's basic range attack, just with the additional benefit of infecting anyone it hits who can be infected. Point number 40. Mac, who is a Japanese guy, gets essentially beheaded. What did the filmmakers mean by this? Point number 41. Okay, here we see Reaper and Sarge chasing after the monster that killed Mac, and in doing so they head out of the dig site through the atrium and back into the labs via the airlock. So when you look at it on this map, the more accurate one, as this one makes no sense, trust me, here is the atrium and here's the airlock to the labs. Looking at the atrium from this angle, the airlock would be in this direction. Here is the doorway to the infirmary, here are the stairs leading to the Ark chamber, so it must be this doorway here that leads to the dig site. And at one point in the movie we do see the sign with a list of locations that the doorway leads to, but it's so out of focus that I can't make out what any of the words are at all. Anyway, the entrance to the dig site not being the same entrance to the labs really confused me. Does the dig site then connect to the labs somewhere else in the facility? Because that's the only way Thurman and Clay, two of the 6 big shot scientists, and whatever killed them, would have been able to get into the dig site without first passing through the atrium. Now you might be thinking, maybe the monster went out of a lab section airlock and came back in via a dig site one. This is adapted from Doom 3 after all, and we see that demons can survive out on the surface of Mars in that game, but Sam only mentions there being 2 airlocks to the surface to Sarge. One at the end of the North Corridor, which Destroyer and the Kid check out, and Destroyer confirms it hasn't been opened in 26 hours, and the airlock in the dig site which Sarge and Reaper check out, where they find Thurman and Clay, who died trying to use it to get out, rather than trying to stop something from getting in. So the labs and the dig site must be connected. Why else would Thurman and Clay be counted as being trapped in the labs if not? I believe even Mr. Shirley, when writing the novelization, was confused by this and couldn't think of any other way to explain it. Since he has Reaper think to himself after seeing that the monster is able to open an airlock, the things could get into the atrium another way, which comes after a description of the route Sarge and Reaper take to get from the dig site back to the labs. Reaper and Sarge tracked their wounded quarry down corridor after corridor all the way back to the D4 tunnel, through it and up into the atrium, then to the airlock that led into the corridors outside Carmack's lab. Which actually just raises more questions that if these monsters are smart enough to work an airlock, I mean later we find out they're also smart enough to use chainsaws and computers, then why didn't they escape out of the labs/dig site earlier? Did it for some reason take this long for their intelligence to come back enough to be able to do those things? Okay, recording Triple S here. Whilst recording this, I actually just thought of two ways a monster could end up in the dig site and have it make sense that the dig site is still cut off from the labs. You know how in point 34 I talked about how Mr. Shirley introduced the idea of an obviously infected guy evacuating to Earth? What if something similar had also happened where an infected guy from the labs made his way into the dig site before the lockdown happened and he turned afterwards, killing Thurman and Clay? Or alternatively, like my idea of how the evacuated guy got infected, an escaped infected lab animal travelled via vents from the labs to the dig site and infected someone there who then turned and killed Thurman and Clay. What do you guys think? Do those two ideas make any sense? And which one do you prefer? Point number 42. So goats started to turn into a zombie, and you might be asking how a man so religious he self-harms crosses into his own skin could have an evil enough soul to be chosen to be infected and turned into a zombie. Well, the novelization goes into Goat's past and reveals that he once used to collect human scalps as trophies, with him only recently giving up that habit after the team's previous mission, the one where they lost Jumper, due to the decoy teenage boy that Reaper killed having been the same ethnicity as Goat. And along with stopping his scalp collecting and throwing out his collection when he got back to base, this was also when Goat became religious, so when Goat died he hadn't actually been religious for very long. Point number 43. Sam screaming every single time Goat slams his head into the window. Oh my god, just so very unnecessary and so very annoying. Shut up, Sam. Point number 44. The fight between Destroyer and the Hell Knights in the novelization is a lot different and really not as good as their fight that we see in the movie. There's no Destroyer using the chains to do a flying kick, no Destroyer swinging the computer monitor around his head and at the Hell Knight, no Destroyer stabbing the Hell Knight, whacking it with a pipe and then pinning it onto the electrified wall with another pipe, and then no Destroyer trying to climb a chain out of the pit only for the Hell Knight to pull the chain and send Destroyer falling to his death. In the novelization, Destroyer actually loses his knife before both he and the Hell Knight end up in the pit, where they both just end up clawing, punching and biting each other until the Hell Knight slams Destroyer up against the electrified wall and he just dies. Actually, both Destroyer and the Hell Knight die in the novelization. Sarge finds both their dead barbecue bodies in the pit. No idea why Mr. Shirley decided to make the fight less epic for the novelization. He could have just kept it the same or made it even more epicer. What a shame. Point number 45. In the novelization, when Sarge finds Destroyer's dead body in the pit, he has a memory of when his team were riding in an ATV and were hit by an insurgent's RPG. After Duke, Reaper and Destroyer finished taking out the insurgents, Destroyer picked up a heavily concussed Sarge and carried him to the nearest marine outpost 7 miles away. This explains why Sarge decided to carry Destroyer's body back to the lab, and Mr. Shirley also explains how Sarge managed to get Destroyer's body out of the pit. He went and found a ladder. Point number 46. While Pinky reacts with humour at seeing Portman being attacked and lies that he can't see him in the movie, in the book Pinky actually sees the monster before Portman does via Portman's gun cam and tries to warn him. Again, not sure why Mr. Shirley changed this, because I think Pinky letting Portman get attacked as revenge for Portman insulting him adds to the evidence of him having evil in his soul and becoming infected and turning into the Pinky demon. Point number 47. And yet another pointless change Mr. Shirley did for the novel was changing Movie Reaper's solid one-liner,
We were conducting a firefight, not an autopsy.
When Sam asks him if they checked all the corpses next for wounds. 2. We were in a firefight. We weren't conducting a goddamn field study. Like, the movie line is so much better. Why change it? Point number 48. When Buck Reaper sees Curtis Stahl here turn into a Hell Knight, he suddenly remembers having seen his monstrous face in the shadows when he was a child with his father in the dig sites. And Reaper wonders to himself if it could have been a ghost of a dead Martian who had turned into a Hell Knight he saw, or if it was a precognition of this very moment. Also, something I chose not to mention till now, I have always assumed Reaper and Sam's parents' accidental death was due to a cave-in at the dig sites. However, in the book, John says the story he was told was that his parents broke into a chamber, not knowing it was full of sickness, psychosis, and death-inducing gas. Which just makes me think of that one part of the 1999 Mummy movie where some diggers end up sprayed with pressurized salt acid. And I'm also just thinking, why would you tell a kid, yeah, your parents ended up in some gas that made them sick, mad, and dead? Why not lie and just say they died in a cave-in to spare poor young Reaper and Sam that added trauma of knowing their parents became sick and mad before they ended up dying? Point number 49. Hey there, conspiracy theorist Triple S here. What if this gas that made Reaper and Sam's parents sick, mad, and then dead was actually an aerosol version of C24? And the parents becoming sick and mad was them actually turning into zombies, and them ending up dead was them being killed because they turned into zombies. And it was this discovery of the gas version of C24 that led Carmack and the other scientists to create the liquid version of C24. Okay, I'll take the tinfoil hat off now. Point number 50. And now we've finally arrived at the scene that completely murders the idea that this is a Doom movie. Or does it? Instead of all these zombies and monsters being possessed by demons or being actual demons from hell, it is revealed they are instead the result of genetic manipulation. They are mutants, and this mutation spreads like a virus. My fellow human beings, this is not Doom, this is Resident Evil in space! Having said that though, Mr. Shirley for the novelisation did actually try in an interesting way to somewhat connect these mutations to hell and its demonic forces. Just before Mac gives Pinky a gun and some grenades, Pinky is reading Carmack's digital research journal, with this being the second to last entry. Twined they are, into the DNA sequence, the fingerprints of the satanic, the darkest of darknesses within us. I dare not call it the supernatural, though it also cannot be called part of the natural world as we understand it. But something inhuman and other dimensional hid the keys to the gates of hell in our DNA. What is its agenda? Who has left this cunning lure for us? And then not long later, after Sam has asked Duke to go fetch the power bone saw, we get a Carmack scene that takes place inside his mind. A scene that really makes me think of the Captain Keys being taken over by the flood animation from the terminal in Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary that can be found in the 9th level Keys. And to show you what I mean, I'm actually going to read out this scene in the style of this Keys terminal. Ready? Let's go. Who are you?
I'm you. I always have been. The animal in you. The hungry animal.
No, I'm not you. I'm Carmack. I'm a scientist, an award-winning researcher. I'm not an animal.
You abuse me, giving yourself airs. All embodied beings are animals.
We become more than animals when we become rational.
Your rationality is like the thin coating man wears when he's expecting a light rain, and then comes a blizzard and he freezes to death.
No! Reason built our civilization. Reason is power. It builds weapons to destroy such as you. I know who you are. You're a part of my mind altered by the infection.
What of it? Can you destroy me, Carmack, without destroying yourself? We are becoming indistinguishable.
It's dark here. It's so dark. You're just a nasty little voice in the dark. At least tell me, where am I?
In a safe place. As for the darkness, you are blinded with the rigours of transformation, hiding from them while your body completes its revolution. That which has so long been hidden away in you will now come to light. The facade of civilization will tear away. Underneath is the face of the beast. That is who you really are. Me, the hidden part of you released by the genetic infection.
So dark here. I hurt. My limbs burn. What is happening to me? I feel as if I am pregnant with a child, bursting with new life. But I am male. I feel like that insect that is injected with offspring by its mates, so that when they hatch out, they eat their own father from within. I feel my legs are wriggling with a life of their own, breaking free of the body. I feel like my heart and liver and guts are writhing inside me, fighting one another for space, tearing their way from my skin. Oh God, the pain!
We are growing, changing.
Liar! We are not one thing. You're just some psychological fracture of my own mind. You're the result of the pressure, the horror of what I've gone through.
What you've gone through? You mean you locked the door on your friends and colleagues? When you shut the door on that poor woman's arm, put it off so you could be safe. When you let them all die so the important Dr. Carmack could live, what is your ordeal to theirs?
I had to do it, so that I could survive and warn the others. I had to warn the world.
How you justify your negligent homicide, Professor Carmack, it is most amusing.
You're a figment of psychological pressure. You're not real enough to be amused. You're a nothing, just a nothing that can talk. Go away and leave me in the darkness with my companion. My pain!
But I am that darkness. I am your pain. That is exactly what I am. Who do you think you have been conversing with?
No!
Oh yes, your eyes are blinded with the substance of my being. Your nerves sing with the vitality of my growing life. I am growing within you. I am taking you over. The phenomenon you experimented with so cheerfully is infectious. Didn't you know that?
It can be stopped. It can be.
It cannot be stopped. You are proof.
No, not me.
Don't you remember what happened in that lab? After you called for help? After you summoned fresh meat for us?
I can't remember. It's all so dark. I don't want to remember.
You have been infected. I am that infection. And the infection is even now becoming you. You are in a conversation with that which is slowly eating you. I eat you. I eat you. I steadily eat you even as I speak to you. I am eating you and digesting you and making you into me. Whatever is in you that I have no use for, like your rationality, will become my waste product.
No! I will break free! I will break out! I will!
You will?
I will. I am.
No. I am.
I am darkness and pain.
Yes, I am darkness and pain. And I will spread it to all that lives.
I am darkness and pain. All of this Mr. Shirley has included in his novelisation to suggest that chromosome 24 either makes you superhuman or it opens your soul, your DNA, up to some hell dimension, allowing demons to possess you, to take control of you, to mutate you, and even communicate with you during the process. Now you see why this reminds me so much of the Flood from Halo. Even more so actually, since in the Forerunner book trilogy, it's revealed that the Flood can choose who to and to not infect. Just like how the genetic demons, which Sam calls them in the book, can choose who to and to not infect, as shown during her brain matter imp tongue demonstration to Reaper later on in the movie. So, if you choose to, you could view these mutants as being the result of demonic influence. It's just the gates of their souls and DNA being opened by the chromosome 24 to the forces of hell, allowing them to take control of people and turn them into zombies and genetic demons, rather than the usual concept of a portal to hell opening up and spewing forth zombie-making spirits and literal demons. Or you could see it as being just a simple, sentient, intelligent virus like the Flood from Halo or even Epideme from Red Dwarf. Point number 51. Now folks, I want you all to look at this hole that's been cut into very thick metal in a pretty quick amount of time, and I want to ask you, what device do you think was used to cut out this hole? Would you, in 1,000 years, guess a chainsaw? Because that is impossibly the correct answer. It was, in fact, according to the book, a diamond-tipped chainsaw. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think even a netherite-tipped chainsaw would have been able to do this. Point number 52. Earlier in the video, we established that the entrance to the infirmary is here to the right of the stairs to the Ark Chamber. So, why does Reaper run across the atrium away from the infirmary, only to then pass a sign that clearly says infirmary, only to then pass through the airlock to the labs and head into genetics, only to then somehow teleport back to the infirmary? Well, the last place Reaper knew Sam to be was in genetics, and the novelisation explains he ran there only to discover she'd left, and thinking of where she might have gone to, he realised she was probably in the infirmary, and so he doubled back. So Reaper going to genetics must have been filmed, but then afterwards it might have been decided it ruined the pace of the movie to include it, so it was all condensed down to Reaper only going to the infirmary, while still using shots of him going back into the labs for some reason. Point number 53.
If it breathes, kill it.
No, Sarge. The line is,
if it bleeds, we can kill it.
How do you mess up such an iconic line from The Last Action Hero? Point number 54. An interesting element Mr. Shirley has introduced in the novelisation is that apparently when you go through the Ark portal, you see things. I'm not sure if everyone sees things though, since we only ever hear of Reaper and Sam seeing things, so maybe it's just a grim family thing. Anyway, when Reaper first goes through the portal at the start of the movie, going to Mars, he only really experiences past sensations, but this time going to Earth, he actually sees and speaks with his dead teammates. Goat, Portman, Destroyer and Mac all looking the way they did when they died, which means Mac is carrying his head around in his hands. Book-only character Jumper, who I previously spoke about near the beginning of this video, is also there. But then, not only does Reaper see his dead teammates, he also sees the soon-to-be dead Duke and Kid, and they all first speak to him about the good old times, before flipping the script and begin telling him he should really die by chop suey because everything that's happened to them / will happen to them is entirely his fault. After leaving the portal, Reaper does get close to following through on his teammate's wish, but Sam luckily snaps him out of it. Speaking of Sam, all we hear about what she saw in the portal is that she saw her and Reaper's dad and that she hates using it due to seeing things when she's inside of it. Point number 55. Sarge's lines of,
I say who's clean and who's not.
And
we kill them all. Let God sort them out.
Not only tells us he's now viewing himself as judge, jury and executioner, but considering God is the one who decides which set of gates you go through when you die, he's also viewing himself as essentially God, a false God. Point number 56. We've had a number of Predator references, but here we get our first Aliens reference, with Duke going out in a similar fashion to Hudson in Aliens. Point number 57. A neat novelisation addition is we're told what actually happens to Sam between Reaper passing out and him finding her in the Ark chamber with Sarge. She actually got very close to shooting her brother in the head because she thought he was turning into a monster. Like, so close she was aiming the gun at his head and was about to pull the trigger, but then an imp broke in, so obviously she switched to shooting at the imp. It doesn't do much, however, and the imp drags her off. She passes out and then awakens to find out the imp, for some reason, chose not to kill or infect her. She got Luke Skywalkered at the start of The Empire Strikes Back. She figures out she, the imp, and a corpse the imp is eating are in an air shaft with a ladder and multiple fans with deadly spinning blades. So you can probably already guess how Sam escapes. She starts climbing up the ladder, the imp follows and ends up getting chopped up in the fan blades when Sam finds a control box and increases the RPM. Now in an air duct, Sam's chased by another imp and they both fall out of the air duct into an office space and she fends it off by stabbing it with scissors from a desk. She leaves the office and almost runs into another imp. She avoids it, but the imp she stabbed comes out of the office looking for her. She throws her scissors at the third imp from around a corner and the third imp attacks the second imp, thinking it was the one who threw something. Whilst they're distracted, Sam heads off in the direction of the lifts, or elevators if you prefer. I don't, where she encounters several feeding zombies. The lift doors are being held open by a dead body, but even then the lift compartment isn't even on the other side. All Sam can see are the lift cables. Deciding to avoid the stairs since the zombies would just chase her down, she instead makes the life or death decision to run, leap through the gap in the lift doors and grab hold of the cable in the lift shaft, which she successfully pulls off, burning her hands and legs in the process of holding onto the cable whilst sliding down, all the while the zombies chasing after her fall past her, crashing onto the top of the lift, which is 4 floors below. Making her way from the cables to a ladder in the lift shaft, she starts to descend, only to realise too late that one of the zombies survived. It pulls her off the ladder and is about to start chowing down on her face when its face is suddenly blown off by none other than Sarge, who kidnaps Sam to use her as bait to lure Reaper. Point number 58. The first person scene is undoubtedly the highlight of the movie, and it really does feel like you could be watching gameplay from Doom 3, with the zombies and imps just appearing from around corners to jump scare you like in the game, especially this one laughing zombie right up in Reaper's face, it always gets me. This Hell Knight with the chainsaw, I presume as well, must have been the same one that cut its way into the Ark chamber on Mars and chased Pinky to Earth. And speaking of Pinky, I would have loved if when the Doom BFG edition was being developed that an Easter egg had been added into Doom 3 to have at least one Pinky demon somewhere in the game have Pinky's wheels instead of robot legs. That would have been so cool to see. The novelisation of the FPS scene does not do it justice, but it does add in some new moments. Reaper finds a corpse of a man who's had his genitals ripped off and shoved into his mouth, and another who's been squashed into an oven and cooked. Some real Outlast shit. He also guns down a female imp described as having very messed up genitals, and he encounters a zombie with enough humanity left in him to motion for Reaper to shoot him in the head and put him out of his misery. The Pinky Demon is also described as having eyes, which just no. Point number 59. Unlike the FPS scene, the final boss fight between Reaper and Sarge plays out pretty much the same in the novelisation as it does in the movie. I gotta wonder at the level of self-delusion Sarge has to be operating at to have said this entire time quarantine needs to be upheld, yet now still wants to head to the surface despite knowing full well he's turning into a demon. Then again, since his entire character revolves around him blindly following orders and using those orders to justify everything he does, it isn't out of the realm of possibility to believe he's the type of person who thinks he's a righteous person whilst actually being an absolute monster, even before he turns into a literal monster. What I'm saying here is Sarge would absolutely be MAGA. Anyway, a small change I'm not a fan of Mr. Shirley made for the novelisation was to move when Reaper says,
Like the kid said, go to hell.
Of course, in the movie, he says it after Sarge has gone through the portal and just before he throws in a grenade after him. But in the book he says it before Sarge goes through the portal. I can only guess Mr. Shirley changed this because he wanted Sarge to actually hear Reaper say this, that he goes out thinking of the kid's last words, giving the kid essentially a kill from the grave medal. To round all this off, my favourite part of the entire movie was the FPS scene, because obviously it's the best thing ever. I'd never seen anything like it before in a movie or TV show, and every time I watch it, it always makes me want to jump back into Doom 3. It's just incredible, one of the best scenes of any movie or TV show ever. Thank you everyone for watching Triple S Reviews. If you enjoyed the video, and I hope you did, give it a like to let me know, and if you're interested in seeing more, feel free to subscribe. I also have a variety channel where I post a variety of different videos. If any of them interest you, check them out. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.